Michael Lewis is a rock star, and he's become a brand in his own right.
When I read this book, it seemed like these were the biggest robberies in U.S. history. And did one person go to jail for what they did? Nobody did.
The book is a good entry point on the financial crisis.
Michael was able to find a way to tell the story that people could understand. I think Michael's book, The Big Short, is by far the best thing that's been written about the financial crisis.
What Michael Lewis did, which no other book which has covered the financial crisis has ever managed to do, is create a real story.
Well, I think people always want to read about people that made a lot of money.
When you read the book, there's not too many people that saw what was happening. It did give me a very uneasy feeling about investing in anything.
Well, I think The Big Short resonates as a pop book because it's something that we've lived through. Plus, it also has a recipe for how people profited, and that's never a bad thing either.
The Big Short is a book about hedge fund managers who take massive bets against the mortgage market and wind up making millions of dollars.
Michael's a great storyteller, and he was able to tell the story through characters, and it just felt like you were really in on the ground floor.
He took that big story about the end of Wall Street and then layered into it this narrative about the plucky young hedge fund managers. The Big Short was a bet that housing prices were going to go down.
Very simply, the investors that profited off of this did their homework.
They would go out into the market and they'd say, I'm betting the prices are going down. Is someone else willing to bet the prices will go up? It's really just a wager. In this case, what you're hoping is that millions of homeowners across America will default on their mortgages. Oh, and by the way, just defaulting on your mortgage isn't enough. The only way that the short makes money is if someone defaults on their mortgage and the price of the house has gone down so much that the bank can't get their money back. And there was a lot of people willing to bet against him on that.
Michael's really good at finding the characters. People who saw the financial crisis a year or two before everybody else.
They're oddballs and misfits, and people who were outside of the ordinary doing something extraordinary.
Michael Berry, is a one-eyed guy with Asperger's who spent all of his time in dark offices reading these prospectuses on bonds that nobody ever bothered to read. And then there's another guy named Steve Eisman who had come out of the subprime business and knew how sleazy it could be. And he quickly was able to figure out that in 2 or 3 years, there were going to be all these mortgages that were going to fail.
Now, that's exactly what happened, and that's why the shorts made lots of money.
What really surprised me in this book is that you would have thought that more people had a clue about what was going on. There were so many different things that all came together to create this perfect storm. You have the government who's standing up and saying, you should own a home, it's the American dream. You have individuals taking on too much credit. You have loan originators who are making too many risky loans. You have the rating agencies who are pushing this false sense of what the risk profile is, and you have Wall Street who's enabling this all to happen.
We gave people the ability to gamble with none of their own money. I mean, greed is there, but normally you have fear to counteract it. But if you give somebody a risk-free gamble, they're going to take it.
There is this inherent greed is good phenomena in our culture, and everybody wants a piece of the action.
President Bush mentioned that the problem was that Wall Street got drunk on cheap money. I said, well, it wasn't just that Wall Street was drunk, the whole country was drunk.
Everybody was really guilty of this, and I always said it, from real estate agents to the mortgage brokers to the people who ran the banks, and everybody just was making money on it.
The Federal Reserve, I think, has more blame because the Federal Reserve really acts as the enabler. If we truly had an independent Fed, we wouldn't have had the housing bubble, we wouldn't have had the stock market bubble, and so we wouldn't be in this mess.
Peter Schiff has no idea what he's talking about. The government is the hero here, really. If it wasn't for the government coming in and bailing out Bank of America and Citigroup and everyone else, we would have collapsed.
That's BS. The Fed made it possible for people to borrow money that they couldn't afford to repay. And remember, guys like Ben Bernanke were on television publicly denying a bubble even after it burst.
Everybody who was involved in the crisis in some way, shape, or form becomes a villain. So who's to blame? The answer is everybody. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from the characters in this book. They trusted their gut, they did their research, they didn't listen to the crowd, and they did the level of due diligence that all of these other parties should have been doing along the way.
The main question I would have for Michael Lewis is, do you regret at all the degree to which you made the shorts heroes? A lot of clients were being lied to, a lot of people on the long side of the trade had no idea what they were doing, were really being fleeced here.
The overriding message in the book, and what I took away from it, was that there is no morality when it comes to money on Wall Street. I don't think the system has changed that much. It's a business about making money, and that is the way you keep score.
It's the people that didn't see the crisis coming that tell us that now they've solved it and the problem is behind us. We need to change. We can't keep repeating the same mistakes and expecting to get a different result.
The financial crisis isn't over yet, and no one knows when it might be.
Will something like this happen again? If I had a crystal ball, I would say yes.